Hi, Algebra 1. Welcome. We're jumping into Saxon Algebra 1, Lesson 48 today. Now, there's a whole bunch of terms that you really need to understand. So I want to draw your attention to page 192. And in there, it's talking about terms and degrees, whole numbers, real numbers. There's just so many terms. And I really want you to take a few moments to look at page 192 and 193. Those bold-faced words are super important, so I hope you'll take time to look over those. Now, terms are typically separated by plus or minus. So sometimes students can get confused and think that terms are variables, but one term can have more than one variable. So 3xy squared, even though it's got x and y, it's still one term because it's all bound together. There's no plus or minus sign in between. But if I had 3x plus y squared, those would be two different terms because they're separated by a plus sign. So it's really important to understand the difference between variables and terms. Your book also talks about coefficients, about variables, just different terminology you all need to understand. So a polynomial, poly just means many. So one term is called a monomial. Two terms is called a binomial. And you can remember that from a bicycle has 2 tires. A tricycle has 3 tires. Good. So a trinomial has 3 terms. So you'll see that in your book on page 193. So I hope you guys will take time to look over these. I know sometimes in math we just think terms, what do I need that for, right? But terms are super important. I used to have a student who used to just call things the thingy. So they would tease me all the time and say, you know, the thingy. So I would tease them all the time that I did not want them to go to college and tell their college professor that their high school math teacher had taught them the thingy. So I expected them to be educated sounding and know what terms they were discussing. So vocabulary and knowing what you're doing in math is just as important as the process is the terminology. So I hope you'll take time to look over those because it is super important. Now, the degree is the highest exponent that is found in your polynomial. Excuse me, friends. I did not mean to yawn. I am actually doing this video super late. I'm not sure if you can tell from the lighting, but typically I do it early in the morning. But right before I went to bed, I wanted to post this video for you all. So the degree of a polynomial is the same degree as its highest degree term. So just look through the polynomial and see what's the highest exponent. That's the highest degree that will have. All right. When you're adding or subtracting polynomials, you want to make sure that you only combine like terms. And we've talked about that a lot. So I hope that will make sense to you. So remember that also your answer should go from highest degree down to your constant. So if you had cubed, then squared, then x to the first, and then your constant. All right, let's take a few moments and do some of our practice on page 195. Let's check out my board. All right, so we're looking at our practice problem, and this is letter A, and it says negative 3x to the 5th plus 6x to the 4th minus 7x cubed minus 5, and then it's being added with x to the 5th minus x to the 4th plus 3x squared minus 2x minus 8. Now, we've talked before that like terms are super important. So before I can do this, though, I've got to distribute this negative, and I do want to make sure that I am watching to combine like terms here. So negative 3x to the 5th minus 6x to the 4th plus watch your signs. A negative times a negative makes a positive 7x cubed. There is no x squared, or x minus becomes a plus 5. So I'm just going to scoot that way down so I have like terms, right? Now I'm combining with it, so I don't have to change the signs, x to the 5th. So I can even write 1x to the 5th here, minus 1x to the 4th. I'm just sticking in an understood 1 as my coefficient. Now, notice there's no cubed here. So I'm going to leave this blank and say plus 3x squared minus 2x minus 8. Do you see what I did there, friends? I made sure to line up like terms so that I don't get confused as to what exponent goes with what. So I end up with negative 2x to the 5th minus 7x to the 4th. Do you all see how my exponents stay the same? I'm just adding or subtracting the coefficients. Plus 7x cubed comes down, plus 3x squared minus 2x. Then I owe 8, but I have 5, so I'm owing 3 total. This is my final answer. None of the rest of this can combine because they're not like terms. So I would encourage you when you're doing your practice set to look over those. Now the next lesson, lesson 49, and we're doing 2 on this video. So we started out with 48 and we're just doing one more lesson, and then you'll have to check out later in the week and I'll have the other 2 lessons for us. But the last lesson that we're talking about is multiplying polynomials. So remember that our rules for add and subtract with positives and negatives are different than multiplying positives and negatives. And as you get older, your rules change, right? So the rules change when I'm multiplying. I can multiply unlike terms. So your book is showing you the difference of distributing, and then also when you have a binomial, 2 terms times another binomial. All right. So it gives you a practice problem. It's actually an example of 4x times x squared minus 2. And all you're doing here is you're distributing, right? So I'm just making that 4x be multiplied to both of those, and I can do that. Now, the book is next teaching you how to multiply binomial. So 5x plus 3 times another binomial, 2x minus 4. And this is practice A that we're doing now. Now, it's going to be the same just like how you multiplied and distributed with a monomial, except I've got 2 terms. So I'm going to distribute this 5x first. All right. And there's a nickname for this that a lot of people use to help them remember to go in order. First, outer. So you distribute this first and then the outer. Or if it helps you remember, I just draw the arrows, and that helps a lot too. So 5x times 2x would make 10x squared. And then 5x times negative 4 would make negative 20x. Now my I would be my inner, so this positive 3 is going to my inner, so that would be plus 6x. And then last, my last 2 terms, it would go here. Do you see how I distributed the 5x to both of these and then the 3 to both of these? So that would end up, my last term would be 3 times negative 4, which is negative 12. Now combine the like terms. The only like terms are the middle terms. So 10x squared comes down. And then I owe 20x, but I have 6x. Therefore, I owe 14x more. And I'm just bringing down my constant. Notice it goes from highest degree to lowest. So up here is a monomial being distributed to a binomial. Here's a binomial times a binomial. Now your book also shows you another, it doesn't look like it, but it's actually a binomial. 5x minus 6 squared. And I would caution you because your mind just says, well, that's just a binomial, but the square reminds us that we should set it up this way. 5x minus 6, 5x minus 6. And I'm not going to take the time to multiply that out, but you would FOIL just the same. The 5x goes to both of those. The negative 6 goes to both of those. And so the more you do that one, that's a specialty. It's a perfect square. And you'll see that you square the first term, you'll multiply the second, and then double it because you'll end up having 2 of them. And then you square the last term. You'll do that a lot more in Algebra 1. Now the last one that we're looking at is letter C. And this is a binomial times a trinomial. So I've got 3x minus 1, and then I have x squared minus 2x plus 3. Let me verify my signs there. All right. So before we distributed this to just the first two. Now I've got 3 terms, so I have to make sure my first term in my binomial goes to all 3 in the trinomial. So that would be 3x cubed, and then 3x times a negative 2x would be negative 6x plus 9x. Oh, and watch, that was x times x, which would be x squared. Watch those exponents, friends. All right, so, and notice it was 2, 1 constant. Now it's 3, 2, 1 because we distributed an x to everything. Now I've got to distribute the negative 1 to all 3, and we're going to continue to line it up. I love that about Saxon, how they keep everything decently and in order. And that's a great biblical concept that I love. So negative 1 times x squared would be negative 1x squared. And noticing I'm lining it up here. A negative 1 times a negative 2x would be positive 2x minus 3. Now notice everything is lined up. Nothing here, no like terms, just bring it down. I owe 6x squared. I owe another 1x squared, so I owe 7x squared plus 11x minus 3. Notice it goes from highest degree down to my constant. 3, 2, 1 constant. No other like terms, nothing else I can combine. I'm finished. So it's super important that you're watching your signs and you're verifying. So that's lesson Algebra 1, lesson 48 and 49. I hope you all have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you shortly to cover lessons 50 and 51. God bless you.